Welcome to the Forest School Podcast, a show where I, Lewis, and my co-host, Wem Southerner, set out to explore a shared pedagogy. It's a space where cerebral thinking matters more than craptivities, where educational purpose outweighs pretty resources, and where inclusion is more than just a buzzword. Join us as we overthink the trivial, deep dive into whatever sparks our dopamine, and reflect on what it means to truly hold space for others, holistically and without judgment. Thanks for being here. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
The ambience that we strive to create.
I pressed the button and then you went, do you want to do? And I went, oh no, I've already pressed the button.
I was about to say, do you want to plan that section of the podcast? But no.
Oh, no, I can answer that
What
for you
is
now.
planning?
No. Hey, everybody.
As always.
Mate. Well, it's been a little while and people might have thought, do you know what? I bet they're getting ready for something. I bet they're going to do something real professional. They've taken a tiny, couple of weeks off. They're probably reformatting stuff. Do you know what I sat and did that was really productivity porn, in that it's not productive at all, but it is joyful?
Did you get loads of new stationery and just look at it all?
No. Well, it was slightly more productive than that. I set up a very anally retentive system of multiple web browsers on my giant. I've got an ultra wide screen, right? So it's like as wide as two screens, and multiple tabs open. And I was redoing show notes for the podcast, and I got through, I think, 130 episodes have new show notes with new links and new descriptions, and I went back through all of them, which I tell you what, if you ever fancy a little bit of a nostalgic trip, just this is only going to apply to you and I, not the people listening, but for you and I, going back through and looking at, and some of them are not in the order that I anticipated, my head. So I was thinking about the one where, two episodes where we interviewed, we talked all about gender at Forest School and how, incredible it was. If you had to guess, where do you reckon that is?
What year?
No. Well, so we were at 215. I think this is. Okay. How early do you think we interviewed?
I reckon that's
Dr.
episode 40.
80.
Oh my god!
And I thought it was really early. I thought it was so early.
Yeah.
People can go and find that now, and it's got lovely show notes in it, and it's appropriate. I found that one, and I dug out the episode we did with Lizzie Wilde about Queer Planet.
Yes,
so I was going through it's June. What else can I find in here? And we did one very early on. I think number 17. We talked about gender in storytelling, and it's us discussing what happens if you flip the genders in fairy tales. Does it matter? Should you do it, or do you just talk about it afterwards and go, what do you think about that character? And it was really.
I don't remember that episode. I'm going to go listen to that. That sounds interesting.
I will say as well that maybe I should have kept it in, but the first 10 episodes of our podcast now start with a disclaimer from me in the future going, hey,
I've heard that,
these are real rough episodes. If you want to, you can listen, but if you want to join, come join us where we are now.
Yeah.
That was my tiny bit of productivity. It was doing nothing but, filling boxes, ticking things. Have you got new stationery then? Is that why you've mentioned it?
No, I just know that is a very typical thing of, productivity. Yes, planning. Oh, I've got a new notebook. I must be very efficient now because look at my notebook. No, I have not been doing anything like that. But I probably should do some of that soon because I'm going back to uni. So I probably do need to be getting...
They finally took your degree away from you.
I'm going and getting I'm going and doing a PhD.
You're going to get a puffy hat. Puffy hat.
Whenever anyone says, "Oh, you're going to be a doctor," I was like, "Just hold your horses. I am going there." What happens next? It remains to be seen. But the idea is to try to do that.
That's so exciting.
So I'm doing play at Forest School as a big research project. Hopefully, that's the plan. Yeah, and I cannot bloody wait because I've kind of wanted to do a PhD since I did my master's, which was in 2010. So it's been a long time coming, and I'm excited.
You've mentioned it a lot. In fairness, it's been one of the longer thought out projects that I've seen you go through in terms of as I often refer to them as thought contractions. Where something goes boop. Yeah. and then boop, and then those times get closer together. Sometimes they're 6 months, and then it's 3 months, and then it's 2 months, and then you realize you're thinking about it every day, and you're like, I need to do something with this.
Yeah, and also like not like when do you ever do this where you find out about a thing in the world or a person that does a thing and you're like, oh my god, I want to do that. Like I found out about like somatic movement, right? And I was like, not only have I done one somatic movement class ever, I now want to be a trainer. I like want to train. I want to lead people. Do you know what I mean? Like Google how to become a somatic movement body person, la la la, you know. And then you're like, oh no, well, clearly I'm not going to do that, am I? But this one is actually remained. So yeah.
It's very exciting.
New stationary time. So that does mean obviously that I'm not in the woods with you anymore now. Yes, listeners. So we were just saying it's kind of like, maybe the podcast will like feel a bit different. Maybe it won't. Like, I don't know, because you're on the ground, you're in the woods, you're doing it. I am currently kind of, visited the woods a couple of times, didn't I, last week? But I'm doing lots of sleep on the sofa, recovering from lots of health schmizzle. But then, we'll be at uni. So we're like...
We'll both be collecting ideas from different sources. That's what it'll be. And so this podcast is basically, we were just talking about this, weren't we? It's going to be like, it may be one of those things where like, if you're off doing the academic bit and I'm off doing the practical bit, and this podcast doesn't become like, what it has been, which is like what's our shared ethos, but which will still, I think, be a shared ethos, but will be this kind of like, you know, mashing together. It's like I'm getting a CPD lecture every time you go.
Well,
I just had this on my lecture, and the other way around.
The other way around, because I was thinking about stuff, you know, if I like read something and then go, hey, Lewis, like, what do you think about that? And you go, yeah, but on the ground, that
you can give me secret little missions. You can be like, hey, listen, I've read this. Can you go and see what happens if you close your left eye when you're talking to people? Just go and test this out. And then I can come back and be like, nothing happens. They just look at you weird.
Load of bollocks. Whatever was that? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this episode we're talking about what we've been up to, what you've been up to. You've been on a few busy. Fun field trips. Tell us.
Yes, I did that thing that I often wish I could do, and I finally sort of motivated myself to do it, in that, you know, people talk about like if you're feeling a little bit of burnout, or you're feeling a little bit of like things aren't necessarily feeling smooth, thinking about which cup needs filling, because it might not be best filled by like sitting. If your body's not tired, you don't need to rest your body, but if your brain's tired, you know, which cup needs attention. And so I resisted the urge to do what I wanted to do, sort of in the back of my head, which was to hit half-term break and just go, no, okay, I'm done. And actually, I spent the first 3 or 4 days off doing like absolute cultural community stuff that really filled my cup in like a way that I hadn't realized needed filling quite as much. That community side of stuff, and that like whimsy and ritual. So maybe I'll do it in order. So the first weekend we went to Coombe Martin, which is only about an hour's drive from where we are, and we went to see the hunting of the Earl of Rhone, which
this is in North Devon.
This is in North Devon.
Yeah.
It's on our social media, on our Facebook page. I live streamed some of it, so people can go and see it if they want to go and see some of it. But I heard about that from Ben Edge, our friend Ben Edge, who did the folk art stuff. And so the hunting of the Earl of Rhone, for people that are like, what the fuck is he talking about? It's going to get weirder the more I explain it. So there was an Irish lord or duke, I think, who came over and washed up, was like running aground in North Devon and was going around being all drunk and silly and mad. And so they had to hunt him down. And so now the tradition is that there's a person who sits backwards on a donkey, and they are in like a suit made of like burlap sack with a big, it looks like a kabuki theater mask painted on it.
Is that a real person? Or is it a puppet?
So it's a real person who they're sat backwards on a donkey, and there's behind them is an obios, which is this great big huge circular. It's very stylistically, an obios is hobby horse without any H's on it. So that's there. And then there are these guards, but the guards are in almost like Technicolor Morris dancing. So they have these big pointed hats, and they're covered in multicolored fabric strips. So they look almost like, very silly. They remind me of the scene in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang where they're pretending to be giant dolls.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a reference some people will get. Anyway, so they then parade through the town, and these soldiers will, every sort of 50 meters or so, the Earl will jump off the back of the donkey, stand there, and the soldiers will shoot the Earl, who will then fall down dead. And then the Obios will come over and dance around them and revive them. They get back on the donkey and they go carry on going through. And then they get to Combe Martin Beach, which is this incredible cove thing. You would absolutely love it. My children came home like 10 kilos heavier with just like rocks and shells and crud. And it's this amazing beach, and along the side of the beach is a freshwater stream that runs into the river. So you've got this beach and the salty sea, and then like just next to you, like, oh right, yeah, that's, you could drink that. That's amazing. So they go down, they take the Earl onto the sea, and at that point it's swapped with a puppet,
Right.
with a
Gotcha.
with a representation of the Earl, and that is then taken by the soldiers and thrown into the sea, and it has to then wash out to sea. Now the day that we went, so it's multi day, and the day that we went was just a hunting day, so that it's not actually a day they find the Earl. So we saw the Obios and we saw the soldiers marching through the town and lots of Morris dancing, but no Earl. So next year we're going to go back on the actual bank holiday Monday and
So
hopefully
how many
see the
days
Earl.
do they do this then?
So it's over about 4 days.
Wow.
And at various different times. It's got its own website. If you look up Hunting the Earl of Rhone, it's very well organised and very well kind of like, it's 7 o'clock and we're leaving from this pub, and then we'll move. Here's the map of the route and all this stuff. So it's like this weird mix of like very organised and like good admin, and then also this kind of cool ancient-ish cultural stuff that often doesn't have that kind of like smoothness to it.
More feral edge.
Yeah, a bit more like, we'll go when we're ready, aren't we? And we'll meet at Jeff's house. Everyone knows where Jeff's house is. So it's really interesting seeing those two things come together. And yeah, my kids loved it. My kids have been pretending to be Obioses. They came home and wanted to like put on, and I'm really close to buying an accordion.
Don't buy one. I've got one. I've got one.
Have you got an accordion?
I've got one. It's only a little bit broken. So please, will you look at it first before buying one? Actually, I don't know if it's an accordion or a melodeon. It is an accordion, and it's beautiful. And I bought it at Brick Lane Market probably about 30 years ago, just because it was something like 20 quid. And it's just, it's a beautiful thing. It's like pearly and covered in little fake jewels. It's bloody lush. And if you can learn to play it, that will be incredible. And then you can join my Morris side, and then it'll be happy days. Obioses are mental, aren't they? The way that they're like a weird flat disc and very shiny.
So it's this giant disc, and it is probably 2 meters across, without exaggerating. Like this 2 meter wide circle that someone has got sort of sat on their neck essentially, and with lots of guardians who are there to sort of stop them bouncing into anything and keep them on the right track. And they are.
I went to Padstow on May Day by accident a few years ago, and there are 2 osses there, and they kind of dance through the streets, and then they sort of have a face off, and they're from different teams, and everyone in the town is either one team or the other. One of the teams is named after a pub, because that's where they meet, and I can't remember what the other one's called. But and they have a teaser, which is a lovely lady, very beautiful maiden, sort of playing either a pipe or a fiddle or something, kind of luring the Obios, and then the os will also go into the crowd and try and kind of steal people and almost like put them under their skirt and be naughty. But I've also seen in different bits of Cornwall I don't know if I'm saying this right, the Mari Clwyd, which is like the horse's skull.
Oh yes, that's Cornwall, and also it's quite big
draped over it.
Wales, right?
Yes, yeah, amazing. To think about like horses being worshipped in Celtic culture, and whether it's that old, I don't know like how old the actual like dressing up as a horse and making that a thing.
Do you know what? That is one of the things that I think I said in the episode, but with Ben Edge. But I have really embodied that thing of the authenticity or the like ancientness of things is actually really dropped in importance for me. In that, like, I was there and I wasn't necessarily thinking, "Oh my god, I'm part of something so ancient and so." I was like, "This is fucking mad," and I'm so happy to be part of something that is like whimsical, because I think there's a lot of these traditions that carry whimsy with them, and if you're not careful you can end up living sort of without Whimsy, or living sort of like, I think sometimes I have long periods of time where I'm not actively participating in Whimsy. I'm seeing it on Instagram, I'm seeing it through like TV shows or whatever else, but like, am I actually prancing around? I mean, yes,
Yeah.
because that's
You
part of
are
my
now.
job, but well, I was going to say, am I
With
actually
your
prancing
kilt.
around with silly things? But I do that all the time.
But no, I know what you mean. It's easy to not do that for a bit and just to do stuff just because. Just because it's play, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's yeah.
Yeah, absolutely needed a bit of play.
Yeah.
So then we had that, and then the reason we couldn't go on the Monday to the actual festival was that we went to the celebration on Dartmoor and Hay Tor. So my family and I went up there. It was planned before the Supreme Court's decision was announced. So it was like, we're going here. If the decision doesn't go the way we are hoping, it's a rights rally. If it does go the way we're hoping, it's a celebration rally.
Do you want to rewind a little bit just for listeners who might not know what any of this stuff is? And I'm just gonna I can still hear you, but I'm just gonna shut the door.
So to go back, let me pull up my notes about all of this. So I made sure that I got the right thing. So Dartmoor, 1950, was designated as a national park under the National Parks and Access to Countryside Act. So they recognised its like importance for natural beauty, and public access was baked in at that point. In the East, they did something called the Dartmoor Commons Act, which was, I've got the wording here, a right of access to the commons on foot or on horseback for the purpose of open air recreation, which just, was to make sure that, because a lot of Dartmoor is broken up. So Dartmoor is this huge space that is partly farms, but also partly kind of like, I was going to say National Trust. That's not what I mean. Like owned by the state, and but this Commons Act meant that like inside this massive Dartmoor area, these are the rules that apply. Only. Yeah. And so then in 2011, someone called Alexander Darwell, who is a hedge fund manager, purchased 4,000 acres of Dartmoor, which was a significant chunk. And almost as soon as they did, Mr. Darwell then decided that he was unhappy with people camping on his land. He thought that it infringed on his rights, and particularly he wanted to raise more space for pheasants and run shoots and kind of commercially run stuff on that land. Despite all this stuff, all this stuff having been in place for at least 50 years before he purchased the land. In 2022, the High Court sided with Alexander Darwell and said, actually, we think you're right, that open air recreation probably doesn't include camping, because it hinged on this interpretation of open air activities.
Right.
And one of the difficult things was that anything that involved stopping would not count as an open air activity. So hiking would still have been permitted, and possibly bike riding, but bird watching would have been illegal, because you have to stop and look at the birds. Picnicking would have been illegal, because again, you have to stop, you have to set something up. And of course, the big one being like camping would have been illegal. There's, from what I've seen, about somewhere between 3 and 5% of the UK is what we have access to as the public. The rest, 95% of the country or thereabouts is private land that there is no access to. So to take Dartmoor off that map even more was such a huge blow.
Yeah.
And not to mention, so much art and literature and poetry has come out of Dartmoor because it's such a weird landscape. It's on a different tectonic plate to the rest of the country. Do you know this?
No.
So that's one of the reasons. So that's one of the reasons that Dartmoor is like particularly weird. Is it's like a different tectonic plate that's like punched its way up through the middle of Devon, which is why it's got all the tors and why the rocks are different there. And
my God.
There are some forests on there, but by and large, stuff doesn't grow because the soil's only about 4 inches deep, and then it's rock.
Yeah.
And
it does feel like that, doesn't it? It does feel like
alien.
You're on a different planet. I remember the first time I ever went there, because I didn't grow up that far away, a couple of hours. And I was just like, what the heckins? And I thought that was always because it was so much higher, so much higher above sea level. I didn't
Sure.
appreciate that it's a different tectonic plate and that there's not much soil and it's mostly rock.
Tectonic plate might not be the right word. There's something. It's on a different geographic thing. Yeah. Maybe I'm just backpedaling there slightly. That tectonic plate might not have been the word I meant. Okay. But so all of this happened. So 2022, they've said, no, you now cannot camp on Dartmoor. Massive blow. 3, it gets taken to the appeals court, who said, yes, actually, you should be able to camp. And then so because there was an appeals court that said yes and a high court that said no, it had to go to the Supreme Court, who this year in May unanimously said that camping is a public right in Dartmoor, which is amazing that it was unanimous. It has, as far as I know, prompted more clarification around the idea that it's backpack camping, not obviously driving in or taking a big family tent. There's, more clarity around it's. I think the biggest group is 6 under this kind of new legislation or new whatever it is. So anyway, so that's all this. And because the Supreme Court have given their verdict, that then puts such a strong position for this, and it's given such a foothold for, hopefully we're going to have some people who've been involved in the campaign come on to a different episode of the podcast and talk to us about it. But yeah, such a strong foothold to then start looking at like the Lake District, or start looking at some of the Highlands and start. Oh, I mean, different. Scotland's already got a bit of right to roam stuff, but
yes.
Looking at different parts of the UK and going, okay, so, this is clearly a big thing for the public. What's the move here? Does the new Labour government, it's not that new anymore, but does the Labour government, start to make this part of their legacy and enshrine it in more places? And, there's clearly public support for it and all these kind of things. So we went down, my family went up to Haytor, which, again, like you say, this mad landscape of just, I've got loads of video footage of it, and maybe I'll put some here in the episode, of just you're standing on this giant rock formation on the top of a hill with Morris dancers and a couple of hundred wonks. Just panning around, and you could see for 60, 70 miles. It was amazing, and amazing to have that kind of group congregation rally in Dartmoor, in this kind of like, not where the seats of power are with the buildings and the legislation and the number 10 Downing Street and all that stuff, but to be like, no, it's here, this is the place on the big fucking rocks is where we want to be. And so we listened to the speeches. My kids got loads of stuff out of. They took stars, so lots of people have made cardboard stars that said their reasons that they love Dartmoor, and so you can see all the signs. And it was just like, it just absolutely warmed my cockles of like seeing that. And then so we had the Lost Giants people at the end who came out with this giant old crocken. So there's a story of old crocken which I'm so annoyed I didn't manage to record, but the spirit of old crocken is this spirit of Dartmoor, who in like 1700s, the story goes that someone decided to try and buy all of Dartmoor and say, it's a waste is what it is, and I'm going to grow on it and I'm going to make it arable. And old Crocken said, if you, I can't remember what it is, if you move but one rock, I shall have my revenge on you. And that person spent their entire fortune trying to get a tiny bit of Dartmoor arable, and it just massively failed. And so obviously lots of parallels again of then being like old Crooken has come back and somebody's tried to fuck with Dartmoor again this year or in the last 5 years, and old Crooken has said no and taken all their money, because this is like massive. One of the things that was amazing, and it will come up in the speeches, is the Dartmoor Preservation Society had raised all this money for legal fees, which because the decision went in their favor, they now don't have as a thing. So that all of this money is going to this huge community access pot that people can bid on for school groups or access groups or initiatives and visits to, partly that money is going to improve Dartmoor, but also it's going to improve equity of access, I should say, to Dartmoor. So it's just so cool. And so the Lost Giants people came out with this huge puppet, this giant headed thing, and it had been hiding behind the big rock formation for the whole speeches. So there's this last speech, and then they start banging the drums, and from round the corner on this rock face comes this giant, maybe 10-12 foot tall. The puppet's mask is about 1 meter in diameter, dancing round, and it was just like, it was amazing. It was amazing. Again, I'll put some footage right here of it dancing around for anybody to see. So good. And also that feeling of like, they just started the music and the big puppet came round, and it just felt right. Everybody was just kind of moving round it in a big circle, sort of bobbing around. There wasn't any kind of like, here's the organized dance. I didn't feel like, shouldn't other people know what to do and I don't, or other people know the song and I don't know the song. It was so inclusive to people for whom that might have been their first experience. It was just, it was incredible, very, very joyful. And it has prompted, now we've bought the zines. If you look up the Lost Giants, they've got their zines on how to make the giant puppets. I'm calling it an experiment at the moment, because one thing I am reflecting on is that, like, so I want to try and make our own giant puppet, which is going to be cool, and also little ones for the kids to all wear. And one of the things I'm really finding, and I said to you the other day, is like, when you want to do something with a big product, we're not very big on products. The projects are always kind of process based, and maybe I finish the last bits off, or maybe they just fall to the side. But knowing that, like, actually we need to make this thing and it has multiple steps, and like, we are 8 weeks out from when I would like to do a little bit of a parade with what I would like to make for our site. Is we have this white stag that occasionally comes through, and so making a giant white stag puppet really appeals to me, but have to get buy-in now if we want to do it in 8 weeks. And that's a very different experience to what we normally do, in terms of like, you can always have a go at this next week, or like, hey, do you know, if it's not on the cards today, like, don't worry about it. We're so, the pedagogy and the ethos is so kind of like, everyone's got their autonomy, that then it's like it's different in terms of like, oh, okay, so am I just doing it if no one else wants to? And then also all this stuff of like the things trying to work out whether you can have, and I was talking to our friend Mel over at Kinda Education about this, about how you marry up autonomy and like community practices, and in that what I mean is, so I had this idea of like giant deer puppet, and then I was like, and we could paper mache balloons, those could become helmets for the kids, and they could all make paper mache deer things. And I said to the kids, this is my idea, what do you reckon? And they were like, yeah, cool. Within 20 minutes someone is talking about the fact that theirs is a dragon, another person was like, mine's actually a Viking helmet, and they were starting to draw on like nose plates and whatever else. And I was like, okay, so you need to have this autonomy over it. I absolutely believe that like in this procession you should be able to do whatever you want to do, but that changes the procession from like, it's just maybe another layer of me peeling back that like product thing of like, can you do a ritual, a community ritual, and still give people autonomy?
I totally hear that, because I know you'll remember that when before I did my forest school training and when I first met you, my idea was I came from a teaching English and drama background and an acting background, and I was like, oh my god, I've got this complete amazing vision of doing theatre outside in the woods with kids, really not just me telling them what to do, them coming up with the ideas, us together making costumes and props out of natural materials, sustainable materials, and using what's around in the woodland, and it's going to be incredible. And so that was kind of always the plan. And then as I met the kids and got to know the woods and got to know forest school, that idea just like disintegrated piece by piece, because for that reason, it's like I can't do, but I still think you could do it, and I still think it would be amazing. But it's got to be for me, the drama thing had to be a completely different thing, because you can't have these kids here for forest school in the way that we have always done forest school, and then go, okay, now kids, now we're doing the drama. No, you can't go on the swing now. You can't go on the swing now. Oh yeah, I see you've got that idea, but that's not going to work for the audience, and we're actually having an audience, and it's actually going to be a real performance. Yeah, do you know what? No, just trust me, because I know what I'm doing. Like, I just could not. I'm sure there are people who can do that and just like switch. And I still believe that being part of an experience where actually you are thinking about an end product and you are thinking about an audience or procession, I still think it's super valuable. And I think that being part of a group of people creating that together with a shared goal that is like, no, we are fixated on this and that is, it's going to be good. I think that is incredible, but I could not
the
do
container
both.
has to be different. You know, in terms of that space holding, you're not holding the same shape space. You have to, which is why I think like it's super valuable. I remember being part of stuff like that as a kid, like performances and shows, and like, but it also gives you a really interesting insight into like, do I like being in those shaped containers? Because some people will be like, I love it. I love being told what to do. I love the uniformity. I love the thing. And they're like, you know how many kids like, but maybe they can only do that for a little bit of time. So like lots of kids will go and do martial arts or something, which is like super like, here's the not audience based, but it is like, here is the thing, here is the homogeny, we're all going to do this, your moves have to look like your moves. And I know kids that have done martial arts lessons who thrive and like really do well, but they also need our space.
Absolutely,
to be
100%.
like, I can't have this same diet everywhere. And that's just an interesting thing where it's like, okay, so we've chosen to hold the autonomy and individualism side of this higher than that thing. But then who knows what will happen, because it's a long-term practice. Obviously with those kind of shorter term things of like, we've got 6 weeks to get ready for a drama production, so it has to go well. And then next year next 6 weeks it's a different cast because not everyone books in again. But like, if you repeat this over cycles, over seasons, who's to say that maybe next year we don't start pulling up some photos of whatever ends up happening this year and we learn from it, and people go, actually, those guys have got a different helmet, and they're like, some people will be like, that's really cool, and some people will be like, I kind of want to have the same helmet as everyone else. And like, those balancing those needs over really long cycles rather than this kind of like linear chung 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 stop, now it's completely different people, chung 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 stop. I think that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think as you isn't yeah, it's good that you're calling this like an experiment, because that means that if it all does,
It's
if the
because the
autonomy
squirrels have already
means
eaten one of the hats.
no,
I
oh
haven't
my
told the kids
god,
yet. So we
oh
made these.
no,
So this is really interesting. So Ruth, who from Lost Giants, their zine has a mix for paper mache, and it involves flour. And I think because we floured and paper mache these balloons and then we hung them up in the kitchen, and I came in today and one of them had fallen. So they haven't gone for the ones that are hanging up, but the
okay,
one of them that had fallen, I was like, I don't remember having like chewed up tissue paper all over the kitchen table.
right, it's just lovely and edible. Okay,
Just lovely and edible, which is an interesting, learning thing. But yeah, it is
yeah,
very much an experiment. And I've said to then that's the nice thing about paper mache is they've been revisiting it. And as a group,
hmm,
we've been like, yeah, do you know what? Maybe we have another go at it. Maybe,
mm.
I don't know what these will turn out like. We might not get anything serviceable this year. It might be
Yeah,
that all we do is 8 weeks of paper mache play. And
hmm,
actually, I'm okay with that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then as you say, it might come up again because you've introduced this idea that this could have this outcome, and here's the process, and here's how we do it, and it could have this outcome, even if it doesn't end up happening this time. Like any of those springboard things that we talk about, who's to say that come kind of winter time, somebody goes, "Oh my god,
Mm,
remember that thing? I want to do a procession about." Blah 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 at winter solstice or some other idea, and it ends up happening then. So I think I think it's still for us to like plant those seeds and like hold up those torches to go like we could strive for this is how it would
mm,
work, and to not and that ego thing of not being too crushed when maybe it doesn't this time, but exciting,
yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And then my other one on the subject of experiments,
yeah.
I've been doing some fashion experiments.
You
Well,
have,
experiment
yes,
over the last, so I'm halfway through now. I've been wearing a skirt for a week.
yes.
What's your perception of it from the outside?
Well, I liked the post you put up, like explaining why you were doing it, and I also enjoy, and my mum's been enjoying content you've been making on social media about you just doing different stuff in the woods in a skirt. I would love to hear what inspired you to do it, what gave you the idea, because I have seen other forest school blokes in kilts
Hmm.
before, but that was quite some time ago, and I was with you around these people, and you never said to me, "Oh, do you know what? That's cool. I want to do that." That I can remember. So what's tell us the
Do you
journey of the
not?
kilt. No.
I've definitely talked to you about it before.
Oh really? Oh well, I haven't got
Because
any memory, so
it's in the it's in the same vein as the conversation. What I've realized is a very long running episode or episode long running theme of I get too hot, and I can remember
yes.
asking you at some point if I could what your thoughts were on whether a vest was appropriate attire, and you
Oh
were like,
yeah.
"No,
No.
you cannot wear a vest because it gets really hot." This is like
I think it
I mean
depends
like
on the
2 or
vest.
3 weeks.
It depends on the vest. I think the vest, like, the kind of vest that if you were a woman shows like a lot of side boob, like that kind of vest for
Full
me
stringer. It's the deepest
is
V you've ever
questionable.
seen.
Whereas, like, there's types and types of vests. I'm
There's
not.
types
I'm
of
not.
vests.
I'm not policing your wardrobe. I was just. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
So it's,
Yes.
but I think it's in that vein, and I seem to remember talking about it before, and then it was just like, do you know what? And I, you know, last year's been interesting and tricky, and as I said to you before, I've not felt like I've had a huge amount of agency in a lot of what's gone on, and I don't, and that's not to say that other people have, but just like my experience has been like, oh, where is the agency, please? And
Yeah.
so I think there's a little bit of it that was like finding a thing to be like, I can do that and I can have some
Yeah.
agency and some kind of like, no, I'm doing a thing. And people are going to be like, huh? And I'm going to be like, yes, I'm doing the thing. So it's that, it's the heating. And also you can attest to the people listening at home how quickly I go through like shorts and stuff, that my work
hmm
clothes end up being more patch repairs than the original material,
Yeah. Lovely patches.
particularly
Lovely patches
Lovely
that you do yourself
patches.
with leaves and things like that. Not actual leaves, like
Yeah, I bought some
idea of
like
you
embroidery
patching.
leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny. I'll tell you actually. I don't think I ever told you this at the time, but when I bought those embroidery leaves, so they're like 2 or 3 inches long, and I
Mhm.
actually only had one hole to fix, and it was right on the crotch. But what I did was I put that one on, and I also put a fake one over a non-existent rip on like
Yes.
another bit of the shorts,
Yes.
so that it was clear that like, oh, he's fixing holes rather than just doing the one in the crotch and being like, sorry, is that man got a leaf vulva? Is he embroidered specifically the crotch of his shorts?
Just to really draw the eye, just like a fig leaf on a statue. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that some of those were fake.
Just to
That's
balance
funny.
it out for
Oh yeah.
aesthetics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so wearing a kilt means that there's none of that stuff going on in the middle, and I feel I have to say this every time. I'm wearing shorts underneath. I'm wearing
Yeah.
compression shorts, right?
Yeah.
I've got a clean DBS, and I would like to keep it a clean DBS.
As my friend would say, the mouse is not coming out of the house. The mouse is in the house.
Wow.
Yeah, the mouse is in the house.
Yes.
That's fine. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been an intro.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's a very odd thing to navigate, people suddenly asking and suddenly being like, right, so that's the thing, is it?
I love it. I love it. I
Uh,
love
so
the
yeah, and I've ordered
questioning,
a
the
second one
status
already.
quo. Have you? What colour this time?
So this next one's coming is black with kind of like tan. So the pockets that are on the outside, those bits are tan,
Nice.
and the belt loops are tan as well. So it's kind of like a bit more
Lovely.
multicolored. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really see loads of reflections that are going to go into more videos, but like and also loads of like amazing support on Facebook from the videos of people who either their families are like, actually this really speaks to one of my kids, or like, do you know what, it's so great that you're putting this stuff out and like being honest in my reflections about it. So I'm really pleased that that wasn't an intended effect at all. It was never my intention to wear it and be like, I'll be an advocate for these kind of things. But yeah, and we've said for a while that I think one of the reasons that our practice worked when we were both in the woods is we were like, oh, there's different energies, and there are some topics that are more this kind of gender based or this kind of gender based, and it's useful to have this kind of balance. And like, I feel like obviously not all of them, but some of those things have slightly been broken down just in this first week, where like I've asked, and like people that know the practice and know what we do will know that like I like to overthink language and stuff, and I've got to a point now where someone commented in one of the videos before and said it's amazing that you don't call them kids, you just say people, or don't say like boys and girls and just say people. And so this week I've been asking people who know how to wear skirts to help me in learning how to sit down, or help me in like, how does it go for this thing? And like, I feel great about acknowledging it as just people who wear skirts, but also they are groups of people who, we talk about that like mantle of the expert thing, where it's like, oh, you know loads about Pokemon, oh, you know loads about things. Like, it's a connection that I genuinely hadn't foreseen, that I got to have this connection with people who were like, let me teach you how to do this. Let me teach you how to like sit down. Let me teach you how to like fold it when you're sitting, like fold it when you're moving around or whatever else. And had this like, they were the experts at something that I wouldn't have considered was a thing. And it seems, it was already quite a big, like, oh, he's wearing a thing. Oh, but I know how to wear that thing better than him. Let me, in kinder and less kind ways, I
can imagine.
which is great to just opened up lots of conversations about it. Is it a costume? Are you pretending to be Scottish? No, that's why I didn't get one that was tartan, because that's got all its own, it's culture, not a costume. And sort of intermittently calling it a skirt or a kilt, and the different reactions that those words have. Yeah, it's been really interesting. And I don't think I'm going back anytime soon.
Great.
It would be interesting to see now, as the weather gets colder and colder, Obviously not for a bit.
Don't
It's
say
gonna
that
get warmer
yet.
and
It
warmer.
hasn't even been the longest day yet. Don't say
No, I
that
know,
yet.
no. That's what I caught myself as I said it. But there will be, as we head towards winter, that will be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
And also, I've got the urge to put patches on it. At the moment, it's like quite a sleek thing, but I've got the urge to put like a little patch on it here and there.
Yeah. Well, you can get so many lovely ones now, can't you? You can get like really beautiful badges that you like iron on or sew on. Beautiful badges.
Yeah.
That
And
could be
then I'd
more
look like a
fun.
real brownie.
Yeah.
Like with all my achievement
God.
badges.
You get the hostess badge just
What's the
multiple
hostess badge?
times.
Oh my god, you've told me about the hostess badge. You're
The
going to have to
hostess
explain the
badge.
hostess badge.
As far as I remember, the hostess badge is bake some cakes and make some tea for somebody.
That's normal. That's fine.
That's your role. That's your role. Serve the queen, help other people, and to keep the brownie guide law, and to make them tea and cakes. Because
You should
that's really
clarify that
important.
the queen or the visitor was the brownie leader, right?
I mean, do you know what? I think it might have actually been the parents. I think the parents came in like a test, like a kind of waitressing test. They set up the hall. It was like if you had to take an exam for being a member of waiting staff,
Oh
It's like the
wow.
parents are coming, best behaviour. Where's your cakes? Where's your tea? Yeah. I wonder if they still do the hostess badge. I don't think they do.
Probably not.
I just don't think they still do the hostess badge.
I mean,
I don't think that the Scouts were doing the host badge at the same time in 1987. I don't think they were doing that. You're Googling it now.
it's now called the celebrations badge
Very Hey
as well.
Dougie.
Yeah.
Does it say what you have to do?
No, I can't find what you have to do. I probably could look it up. I mean, you can still get it. Would you like me to get you the patch? Did you get the patch?
What, the hostess badge? No, I got it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't
right.
get very many badges because I didn't really have the attention span.
No.
I did get one that was like an entertainer's badge because I got the cardboard box that my mum's new washing machine came in, and I was like, oh my god, it's like a magic disappearing box. Me and my friend can do magic tricks where she gets in the box and disappears. And it'd be
Excellent.
amazing. And so we put on this absolutely batshit show, which involved turning off the lights and me having a tiny little torch and going, oh, follow the torch, and then her disappearing. Oh yeah, so the hostess badge actually had a cup of tea on the badge, brown and yellow. Beautiful. Oh my god, the celebrations badge. Oh yeah, okay, so it focused on inviting a friend for tea, and now it incorporates party planning. Well, every brownie needs to know how to plan a party. Oh god, amazing. Exploring different cultures' celebrations. That's a bit more with it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. They've given an out there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Special.
So we've got stuff on the horizon, haven't we? We've got guests booked to come in very soon. I've got about 5 books on the go. I'm reading the book about bog fashion, and also I just got another book about called Cultural Emergence, which is about culture building and space holiday.
Oh, that sounds sexy.
It's very cool.
Yeah, I'm reading Rebirding, and I'm about a third of the way through that. And I think we should talk about, so going back to the Right to Roam stuff, and that more general, wider movement for land access in the UK, there are 3 books that Nick Hayes, who's a key part of that group, has written, which are all excellent. But the latest one, which is Wild Service, Why Nature Needs You, I think that we should talk about that. I think that we should both read that. Or I can read it and waffle on at you about it. I had to stop because sometimes I just get too sad. And it's the same with Rebirding. You know what? It's
I'm finding that with
I can only listen to
you
so
recommended
many
it
facts.
to me. You recommended
the
befriending your nervous system.
Yeah, I stopped with that too.
Oh, it's quite dry. It's quite dry and quite hard.
The reviews were good, and I was just like, oh, no.
But we've got lots on the horizon, and I think it's fair. I can tell people that before we started recording, I said to you, I'm a bit nervous about the podcast is changing and it's going to be a different thing. But actually, having done some chatting and having thought about the things, I'm excited about the next bit right now.
Yeah, man.
It's very cool. I'm going to go keep wearing a skirt for another week.
Excellent. Report back.
We'll see you next time.
And you haven't had a wait. Can I just ask a very important question? Have you had a tick on the todge? Because you don't want to tick on
what?
Had a tick on the todge, mate. You don't want to tick on the todge. That would be very bad. Have you? No.
No.
Good. Bye.